Seamus Kraft. He is the co-founder and director of OpenGov Foundation. I'm sorry, Seamus, you can yell at me later. He co-founded it with U.S. Representative Darrell Issa with the purpose of helping citizens be heard by their elected officials and government workers in fulfilling their responsibilities with most user-friendly tools possible. Okay, the definition of, or the thing that they say about OpenGov.com or OpenGov Foundation is it's a fiercely nonpartisan nonprofit transforming the process and policy of our democracy for the internet age. He steers 2 path-breaking software projects reinventing local, state, and federal government. And I'm pretty excited to listen about that. Seamus went to Georgetown. He's from Marblehead, Massachusetts. When he was at Georgetown, he studied classical political philosophy, scholastic theology, and military history.
And I work in the tech industry, so.
Yeah. So we haven't figured out how he got into the tech industry. But having dinner with him last night, I learned more about social media in like an hour with him, and how we're not using it correctly and how we should be using it to our advantage than I've learned in the years that I've known what social media even is. So Seamus, I will pass it over to you and let you teach the rest of us some more.
Thank you, Don. I have a really important question. Would anybody mind if I took off my jacket?
No.
No.
All right, I do way better. Untethered. This is dressing up. I work with developers, software guys, so it's usually beards and sweatpants, pajamas, and basements. So this is like my Sunday best, which I say for y'all. Hello, welcome. As Don so eloquently put it, my name is Seamus Kraft. I'm from Marblehead, Massachusetts. It's the birthplace of the American Navy, for those of you who care. I went to Georgetown, and I am a recovering political activist, political worker. I spent 2 years in the Bush administration, one at the State Department as a special assistant, which was special assistant for carrying luggage. I traveled around the world as an assistant secretary, carrying all over here. And then went from there to the Commerce Department and became a speechwriter. Why? Because I guess I could string a sentence together, and they were really looking for help at the end of the Bush administration. Right after that, I went to the Hill. And I got brought in by Congressman Issa, who I knew nothing about at the time other than his name was Congressman Issa, and I was to address him as Congressman Issa, to bring technology into Congress. Literally, that was the job description. It was a very difficult lift. And as Don told you, I'm a political philosophy guy. You heard no development stuff on there. So I had to learn all of this that we're about to talk about today from scratch, all by myself. And that's why I wanted to give you the gift of knowledge that I gave, or that I picked up over time, which is this lovely piece of paper. Hold this thought here, but it is GovStar. That is a tricky acronym. I wanted to try to get Gov in there. But this will be my gift to you today. And I promise you, by the time we leave this room, you will be a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, in government or in your own life. Yeah, so that's going to be the goal of the operation. So I hate PowerPoints. I hate it to death. I know that educational institutions sometimes love PowerPoints. But today's conversation will be actually completely PowerPoint free. These 4 tabs are all you're going to see here. But before we even get to that fun stuff, and I explain why the heck I have my Instagram account up here with a delicious CJ's barbecue soda up there, I wanted to ask some questions and actually have everybody stand up, clear the decks, because we're going to do some motion. I hope people's creativity are going. You're not like in a post-lunch nap phase. But if you are, we're going to wake you up, and we're going to do some real-time, data-driven decision-making and decision gathering. Excellent. So I'm going to toss to you a couple provocative questions. And here's how it works. So on this side of the room, I'm going to make a statement. If you completely and utterly disagree with what I say, I want you to sort of move to this side. If you completely and utterly agree with what I say, I want you to come to this side. And if you're in the middle, that's totally fine. That's actually awesome. And we have some great rows here. So sort of if you're almost all the way in agreement, sort of almost the way in agreement, sort of almost the way in disagreement. You get the idea, right? All right, so first question. First question. The news media in the United States has never been better. All right, disperse, disperse, disperse. Don't think too hard. Never been better. If you completely disagree with that statement and think it's never been worse over there, if you completely agree with it, all the way over here. Excellent. So who's our right flank? Gentleman in the pink shirt, what's your name?
Chris.
Chris! You look to be at about, what, 50% agreement? But you're definitely the right flank. There's some stopping.
He's trying to get against the wall.
Trying to get against the wall. Well, let's start with Don. Apologies, Chris. Don, why are you in complete disagreement with that statement?
Because to me, the media is either all the way to one side or all the way to the other side. We no longer get the investigative reporting and stuff that you can depend on just the facts. We no longer get just the facts.
No longer get just the facts. All right, somebody who's actually sort of in complete, utter disagreement.
Jordan.
Jordan.
I'm not in complete disagreement, but I think there are sources that
Okay.
are better. I mean, they still have their bias, but I wouldn't say it's completely gone. It's just harder to find.
Okay, harder to find. That's great. And ma'am, what's your name?
Carolyn.
Carolyn. Where you look to be at about?
No, I would be just up against that wall.
Oh, just up against the wall.
Absolutely.
All right. Why?
Because I'm like Colonel Bailey. I get tired of everybody giving me their opinion when all I want to do is go to find out what's going on, and I don't need, oh, that's really terrible, or we're so sorry to hear that. I don't feel as though that's appropriate.
Beautiful. That's exactly one of the things I'm going to talk about today, is just finding out what's going on, which if you're running a democracy or government is an incredibly important part. Journalism is not doing well today, and I think we can all pretty much agree with that statement. All right, next provocative question. I believe individual citizens like me are always truly listened to by government. All right, shift. Now, none of this aisle blocking stuff. I want you guys to get close, get to know each other, shift, slide around. I want a good spread here. So citizens like me are always truly listened to by their government. All right, you're a right flank. All right, what's your name?
Steve.
All right, Steve here. Steve, you are a right flank. You look to be at about 57% of agreement. Why?
Also former recovering Hill worker. I know that if you call, someone will listen.
If you call, somebody will listen. That's great. You make me happy. High five. There's hope out there. There's hope out there. All right, gentleman in the back left with your arms crossed. What's your name?
Haldun.
Big part?
Haldun.
Haldun. Where you look at complete disagreement, almost, or pretty darn close.
Actually, no, I was going to move to the.
I blocked him. Oh.
Oh, well, then come on over. It's totally cool to move. Now, I'm going to go, on this one, I'm going to go around the room a little bit, get a deeper dive, and it's fine if someone says something that changes your opinion to move back and forth. This is a completely dynamic activity. So you're now at about 35%?
Yeah.
Why are you there?
Well, the government might listen, but we also need to speak out.
So there's two responsibilities there. It's not just
It's not
government
just the government, it's also the citizens as well.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, we're going to do gentleman in the purple shirt with your arms crossed. Complete disagreement. Why?
100%. I mean, I'd say that individuals are not listened to. I think that people on the Hill, I think there's a lot of trouble with our Congress and the way that our Congress is run. And I think they're more prone to listen to people who can finance their future endeavors as opposed to what they or their constituency thinks.
So they're not truly, are you moving? A bit. Hold that thought. So not you feel not truly listened to, we're only listening to some people. All right, your name? Will, why did you move a little bit?
Well, I didn't realize just how far this is going. I think that the whole argument they only listen to the few people with money. I think that the government, they give everyone a chance to speak, but that's not the same as actually paying attention. The government they pay attention to people in the aggregate. When people are signing petitions by the thousands or millions, the polling data, the whole record, they listen to that. But individuals, not really. Just spend some time on the White House petition site and see how much real responses that gets.
I've spent a lot of time on the White House petition site. Did you know that the White House is not actually going to build the Death Star?
Yes. It's understandable given some of the petitions that have been on. They will respond.
Fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. Now, I have to say that I've saved, one of my colleagues saved you, because this whole talk was going to be through the lens of the Force and Star Wars, and they walked me back from that deep cliff, so you're welcome. All right, now here's my last question, and this is my favorite one. If Thomas Jefferson, good old TJ, was alive today, he would be all over Twitter and Facebook. See some thinking going on. All over Twitter and Facebook.
This is the I don't know.
This is the I don't know.
I'm just letting you know.
All right, let's start with an I don't know. Young lady in the red scarf. What's your name?
Caroline.
Caroline, you are in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know if he would be. I think as a public figure, you'd have to have someone representing him on social media, so he might not specifically be him doing it, but he would maybe have one of his younger assistants doing it for him. I guess as a public figure, you probably have to have some kind of representation on social media.
That's great. What about you? You're almost in complete disagreement.
Well, I think nowadays such a bright and talented person as Thomas Jefferson is not so likely to become a leader or a public person. Now it's more about technology of promotion.
Technology of promotion. I like that.
I mean, if you're reading Twitter or Facebook or the news, it's not like that you're going to find some outstanding pieces there.
We shall see.
Well, I mean, Thomas Jefferson is not from Twitter or Facebook. And people who usually get most of the information from Twitter are not those who are ready to read something as valuable.
Touche. I guess I need to reevaluate my news consumption habits. Chris, you're almost in complete agreement.
Yeah, I think TJ was a pretty progressive and engaged guy, and he liked to think outside of the box a lot. And so I think he would utilize all available resources to him. I actually disagree. I think he would be doing a lot of the social media stuff himself, because I think he just would like to just be that engaged.
You know, in the course of human events, people.
He might have issues with 160 character limits, but I think he'd make it work.
Cool. Now, Kelly.
Yeah.
You are our right flank here, almost in complete agreement.
I think the loudest voices of any generation will seek every microphone possible. So
that would be a great tweet right there.
So Thomas Jefferson, I think, would maybe be. The reason I'm not on the wall is I think he might be surpassed by like Ben Franklin.
Okay.
The folks with the newspapers.
Poor Richard.
Yeah.
Poor Richard.
There you go.
Very
the folks that were louder than Jefferson.
Okay. What did you say? Howdy? Howdy. That's right. All right.
So, yeah.
Cool. Now, last one. Sir, what's your name?
Van.
Van?
Yes.
You're at about 85%
Yeah.
agreement.
Well, I view Thomas Jefferson as a mad dog liberal who is a manipulative scoundrel.
So why Twitter?
But he was a great writer, right? And he had a lot of good ideas, which he didn't, I don't think he really intended to see through. And if you remember, he had an ongoing battle with John Adams, right until right near his death.
Literally their dying day. Weren't they exchanging letters on their dying day?
Yeah. It was July the 14th, I think.
Well, thank you all for helping me do some real-time data gathering. Please take your seats. I've got blood flowing so that the rest of this conversation can be eminently productive. All right, so we've got about 40 minutes left here, just to do a time check, which I love to do a lot. We got 40 minutes left here today, and what I would really like to do is spend the last half an hour of this going through questions, because I view presentations as anti-PowerPoint, which you've learned about me. But the second is that this is an information marketplace, right? I had y'all stand up and move so that I could learn stuff about you in aggregate that I could not learn individually, right? It would take a long time to have that conversation, person to person to person to person to person to person to person. Well, we just brought technology into the conversation. I just gathered a whole boatload of information about the room, and about you guys individually, just based on standing up and staring, moving around, and I got some blood flowing, which is always great after lunch. So that brings us to Instagram. Now, who does not know what Instagram is? Anybody? All right. Whew, thank goodness. So Instagram here is the vehicle through which I would love to explain how to be a CTO. Now, when you talk about technology, and I think last night at dinner, Don and Kelly, I'm going to call you guys out again. You gave me a lot of intel on technology in life, right? I think, Don, you were saying I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't really go on that much. Facebook, I don't really go on that much. Twitter, get out of town. Well, it's really doing a job, right? And that was the mandate I had when I came to government. I told you, I was an Aristotle and a Plato guy. I could write military history, scholastic theology. I mean, that's Thomas Aquinas, right? Way before the internet and computers. So I had to wrap my head around all of these complicated things. Now, in the short time we had today, I had to ask myself, what could we talk about? We could dive deep into healthcare.gov. That failed as a technology project. We could dive deep into the Arab Spring and how Twitter moved there. We could dive deep into Congress and how technology is used. I wanted to give you guys a framework that you could actually bring home with you to be able to be a more informed tech news consumer. So when you read those stories about healthcare.gov, you actually know what's going on and what's going on in the CTO's mind. When we read stories about the Arab Spring and how Twitter toppled Tunisia's government, love that alliteration. Did it? Or was it people using Twitter? And what I would like for you to carry out of this room is on this piece of paper. All right. So, this is GovStar. This is GovStar. Goal, users, Voldemort. Get ready for that one. Stuff. I normally say another S word. Stuff. Tech. There's a question mark there for a purpose. Test, assess, rinse, and repeat. Another question mark. All right, so here my goal in taking this picture last night was what? Young lady in the yellow shirt, what's your name?
Maria.
Maria, what do you think my goal was last night when I took this picture and posted it on Instagram?
You wanted to share that you were in Texas since you're not from here.
Yep.
That you were eating barbecue, local kind of thing to do. And I guess you were having a good time. And you were full.
I was very full.
And it was good. Yeah, and just like share that with the community that follows you. And just show them where you were, what you were doing at the time.
Okay.
16 hours ago.
6 God.
And where you were.
It seems like yesterday, right? All right. How did Maria know that I thought it was good?
Because you posted it on Instagram.
I post some pretty bad stuff on Instagram. Don't go to this barbecue place.
Well, I don't have Instagram, so I don't really understand.
I'll give you a hint. Up here.
Yeah, so something that you're not used to, but that you really enjoy, is kind of what outside of what
Yeah. So before last night, I thought barbecue was any meat you put on a grill outside. Yeah, I know. Forgive me, I was educated. My paradigm was shifted. All right, so that's G. My goal was to do all of those things in Maria shared. It was to tell people I was in Texas. It was to give myself a prop with which to start this talk today. But it was also to tell the world, thank you, right? That I had wonderful barbecue. If you're ever in College Station, you gotta go here, right? That was my goal. Now, who are my users? Who are my users? Gamma 5 Beta? Gamify beta, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Who are my users?
The people that follow you and
Okay.
looking at the information that you put up.
Fair enough. So those are my users. So those are the people I was trying to reach with this information. Voldemort. Can you tell us who Voldemort is, for those who don't read Harry Potter as aggressively as I do?
I guess the main bad guy. I didn't read much Harry Potter.
The main bad guy, right? The enemy. You need to know who your obstacles are, right? Who is the barrier to you accomplishing your goal with your users? So who is Voldemort? There's always going to be a boogeyman, right? We're talking about politics and technology. There's always going to be a Republican to go after, a Democrat to go after, an idea to go after. There's always going to be an obstacle. All right, what was my stuff? And I'll finish this off for us. The stuff was very raw, right? It was a picture of barbecue. It was Instagram. The stuff was the barbecue. The tech was Instagram. So that's something that I didn't have to build. It existed. I could get this message out with something that existed. How did I test it? Well, I went crazy and did not test it. Actually, that's a lie. I did. I took 2 pictures. One was a little fuzzy, and my fingers looked fat, and it was like, whoa, have I had a couple too many cocktails? Like, there was root beer in here. So I took another picture, but I tested it. I took the picture, I made sure it looked good. It didn't. I took another one. Assess. Did it work? How do I assess this? This is a key part.
Number
Orange polka dots.
number of likes or like number of comments.
What's your name?
Rebecca?
Rebecca, I'm sorry for naming you by your colors. Rebecca, how did I test this? Or how did I assess this?
Find how many likes you got and also how many comments.
So I got
You got 6
Texas
likes
is bigger
and
than France.
True.
And I got some activity here, right? So I was able to put out this data and get instant feedback on whether or not it's working. This is what I do every day with government information. And this is what you guys can do every day as you're consuming this information or when you go out into government. Please, 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 all that I would ask is you can forget me, you can forget CJ's, I hope you never forget Texas A&M, but please, please, please never forget GovStar, because this will actually help you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if we can go back to the users, you said the users are actually your followers.
Okay.
So that means to a certain extent you are identifying users. But when we're talking about Twitter, Facebook, and other stuff, you cannot limit or you cannot put a limit on who your users are.
Exactly.
So,
And that's a decision that I made in that platform. And actually, if you're following me on Twitter, I tweeted this out too. So when I posted it on Instagram, it didn't just go to my Instagram followers, it went out to the entire world.
And if you would have used a hashtag, you would have changed and added to your users because more people would have used it by that hashtag.
I could broaden my base. So I basically ran a small, mini, little political campaign online around my delicious dinner at CJ's Barbecue last night. That right there is GovStar. All right. So now that you guys are all CTOs, this is exactly what CTOs do every day on campaigns, in government, although poorly. And even in the most extreme use case of technology, which is regime change, right? We could run down GovStar, and we can do that during the Q&A question part here in about 10 minutes, if you would like, for toppling Tunisian government, or changing regime in Egypt, or even Thomas Paine, right? Think back to how our government started. Technology played an incredible, empowering role in getting citizens of the colonies the government that they wanted, that they felt they deserved, and it wasn't coming from England, right? So technology, we've learned, is transformative, it's accessible, and it's used every day, as we've heard in this conversation, in governance, in politics, and in regime change. All right, so where do I come in? And this is the fun part. So this is the mental framework through which I look at all of government. Right now, we all know that Barack Obama's campaign was awesome with technology. John McCain and Mitt Romney's campaigns were, put this nicely, less than awesome, using technology. It wasn't because the technology was partisan, right? No, Twitter knows no bounds. It's not just for Democrats, it's not just for Republicans, it's not just for people in a closed society, it's not just for people in an open society, it is for everybody. That is one of the paradigm shifts that we're talking about today with technology and governance. It's that it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter who you are. It really does not matter what you believe. You can reach people using these very simple strategies that I've outlined here, almost to your complete satisfaction, right? Where else can you do that for next to nothing? In the old days, you'd have to pay a lot of money for TV spots, for radio spots, for things like that, and you wouldn't actually know if your message was working, and you'd be out millions and millions of dollars. Here, this is all happening for free. So I want to show you a little bit about what I do. I don't like talking too much about myself, but I feel like I have to give you a little window into the OpenGov Foundation. We modernize law and legislation, lawmaking and legal data. Who's ever read a bill? Has anybody ever read an actual piece of legislation? What's your name?
Gretchen?
Gretchen. Gretchen, what bill did you read?
I can't remember the number, but I've read various things. I think probably the most recent was on international education,
Okay.
increasing the numbers.
How did you read it?
I read it off of CQ.
You read it on CQ. God bless you. CQ. It's Congressional Quarterly for those of you who don't read bills, like Gretchen. Most of government, that is an advance, right? CQ is mostly spending time on national things. That's only one level of government, right? There are city governments, there are town governments, there are county governments. That's what we work on. We also work on the federal level. We turn legislating into a online, open, and interactive experience. Yay! So this is where I got to start. Now this is where I get to do a little bit of a hacker moment here. The Stop Online Piracy Act. Does that ring any bells for people? SOPA? HIPAA? I see a head nod. What was SOPA? Do you remember?
It's the stuff that stopped online piracy.
It was attempting to stop. It was attempting to stop online piracy. But how it did it really mattered, right? It was a bunch of content creators, a bunch of those who, I forget your name, sir? Yeah. You said nobody listens to us, they only listen to special interests. That was exactly what SOPA was. It was the people who pump out content, Hollywood, big music industries. They were saying, we're going to change the law so that our artists get their money, right? But how they did it mattered. How they did it was, if you sing like Justin Bieber did, right, when he started, if you sing a copyrighted song and upload that video on YouTube, like a karaoke session, it would have put you in jail. And it would have held Google and YouTube accountable for allowing that video, that copyrighted work, to get out to the world. So this is where I got my choice. So my boss at the time, Congressman Issa, went into that hearing and said, "This shall not pass." And he actually went way beyond. I've never seen him get so heated about anything in his entire life. He came back into the room and he was like, Seamus, you might want to play back that tape, because I think that we've just become the lead opponents of this thing called SOPA. Now, $100 million plus of lobbying special interest money was put behind this effort. This bill was crafted behind closed doors. A guy on the Judiciary Committee, right, my boss, didn't even get to read it before the first hearing. $100 million was put behind this effort. About 1,200 at its height at the end of 2011, early 2012, about 1,200 lobbyists, so actual people, were knocking on doors in Congress to get these things passed. And we said, we're out of time, we're out of money, we don't have $100 million, we don't have 1,200 lobbyists. This thing's going to come up for a vote in 3 days. What do we do? GovStar. This is when we had to sit down and say, what the hell do we do? We got to solve this problem. We took that information, which was in CQ. It was actually before CQ, right? This was in a PDF document. And we hacked it open on the internet and made it completely interactive. We stayed for 3 full days. I drank more Red Bull than I ever drank in my entire life. 72 hours from a whiteboard, from GovStar, from this idea and this decision-making process into this somewhat clunky, yet way better than you have, elegant website, right? This smells, if you could, smells a little like Wikipedia, right? This is what we work on every day. This is where government is actually going, right? So we opened this up to the public and we didn't know what the heck was going to happen. All the voices that were shut out of that process, the developers, the lawyers, all the people that they excluded from that legislative process, we said, you guys want in? And this is to your point, right? It's not just government. It's the citizen has to step up and do something about it. We gave the citizens a very, very low, like I'm talking down here, you can't see me anymore, low barrier of access. You didn't have to fly to Washington. You didn't have to hire a lobbyist. You didn't have to spend $100 million. But you could actually testify and change, oh, there's my mouse, the legislation. See everything in blue here? Yes? This blue part? These are actually parts of the bill that were written by complete strangers. I've never met them. Dale Weiss has never met them. They've never even come to Washington. This one right here actually came from, this is my favorite story about the power of all this. All right, where are you? Regina, or it's Carolyn here. Or Rowena, excuse me. Rowena here? You know what she makes her living on every day? She writes X-rated sci-fi fan fiction. That is where she makes her money every day, and she does pretty well at it. But she had 2 IP degrees, right, that she never used. She went to Harvard, and then she went to Columbia, and she got 2 incredibly expensive law degrees in intellectual property, but didn't have an outlet for that knowledge. Well, we threw out the bill that she knew something about a little bit, in such a way that she could interact with it. We lowered that barrier between her and her government, got the word out using social media, and she came in and she actually rewrote a section of the bill that was smarter than the smart guys in Congress. That's where all of this is going. And that's where I actually would like to end today, because I want to get to your questions. But I wanted to show you a little bit about the process of technological decision-making in government. I wanted to get a little information from you to see what you knew. But more importantly, I wanted to show you where it is going. And I'll give you a slicker version of Madison right now. This is our first recent win. This is our first city municipal-based legislation that was completely drafted on the internet, openly and transparently, where citizens came in, joined the conversation, and helped their city council run it better. Is this everywhere now? No. This is only a start, and you guys are actually getting this talk from me like very, very early days. But 10 years from now, our goal is that all of government should work this way, so that we can move like everybody from the disagree side. When government listens to actual individuals, I'm here telling you that they do if you call. Who is the call again? Who? You are. If they call, they listen, right? Well, not everybody can call. Not everybody can pick up the phone, but if we do it online, on the web, everybody can interact with that information. And that's what democracy is all about. And that's why I think Thomas Jefferson would have been all over Twitter like, you know what, on this. Amen. Any questions? Thrown a lot of information at you today, but I'd love to take any questions about politics, technology, you name it.
Could you elaborate on how that you put the bill up online and then people come in there? Is it like a chat room where you say, I don't like this line, I think it should be worded like this, and then how does that translate into a bill? Is there like a big vote at the end of the conversation, or?
That's a great question. I'm going to sign in and show you. That's the job of the congressman, right? So, we go to here. I'll show you how it works. Now, this is an archive, right? This is at the Library of Congress, so I'm not actually, what I'm about to do here is not actually going to be writing a bill. Make a bill edit. Oh, gosh. That's first step. Clicked on the section that I want, which asked a great question. Thank you. Preview bill edit. Submit bill edit, boom. That's how it works.
So like anyone could do that?
Anyone could do that. All you needed was an email address and a Facebook forum. We govern by the facts.
So what stops someone from going on there and, like Wikipedia has a problem with bad people going and changing things?
Absolutely. So democracy has a problem with loud people, right? We just made it a little bit easier. And we actually built this. This is why I wanted to, this is a great question. And I wanted to put this in the main part of my talk. This was built very selfishly, right? I gave you, you know, the kumbaya around the fire, we're all locking arms in democracy version. We were staffers who were getting thousands of calls, tens of thousands of emails. How do you make sense of all that information? You know what it's like, right? I mean, did you really remember everything that was said to you on the phone by that constituent?
That's how angry it is.
Depends how angry they are, right? Well, we couldn't make sense of all of that data. We could not use all of that information, let alone respond to it. But when we put it on an online platform like this, and we'll go back up to the top, this was the introduced version. Let me show you the draft version. So all of this stuff here, all of the actual track changes, red lines here, and the general comments, we read through it. So we were able, when somebody called up, we said, that's a great thought. Let me cut you right off there and say, go to keepthewebopen.com and really let us know what you think, right? So we made that poor staff assistant's job, who was picking up 7 phones at once. We made her life and his life a little bit easier, because we gave them a place to speak out. And then we made our staffers, our ledge staffers' jobs infinitely easier, because they didn't have to sort through, you know, thousands of like scrawled messages, faxes, and everything. It was all listed easily right here. And what we did on the back end was just, everybody's used Microsoft Word track changes, I assume at some point, right? They just literally sat in the back and said, I like it, accept. No, 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 accept. No, no, accept. And that's how we build that draft. Kelly.
So forgive me for playing devil's advocate to your utopian vision.
Please do.
So what happens if this becomes the new way of writing law? What happens when you end up with essentially the digital version of a filibuster? You end up with so many comments that have to be sorted through, that have to be, and I mean, you end up with just this endless stream of people who are absolutely dead set on blocking this bill. How do you deal with that?
There's not a technological solution to that. It's already happening, right? People are already making that noise. They're already throwing the kitchen sinks that they can at it. Our job at the Open Gov Foundation with this tool here called Madison. I was going to throw out James Madison, but I know Thomas Jefferson is slightly more well known. With Madison, we just made that a little bit easier on the folks inside of government to listen, so that you could be truly heard and truly listened to. We saw the troll effect in practice, but you know what? When you put that stuff online and discoverable, I don't have a lot of paper here, but you get the form letters, right? Particularly like NRA, NAACP, AARP issues. They send their members a letter that says, hey, just cut and paste this and send it on to your congressman and you're going to make a difference. Those things go right in the trash. Or right in the recycling. That's not useful for anybody. And we just made that whole interaction a little bit more useful. So we weren't killing trees, but we were also getting that knowledge incoming that folks like Rowena had that was latent in our democracy. And that's the beauty of this country, right? Like I come from a town, you heard this last night, I come from a town where we're still run by town meeting. Like people come to a gym for a week every year and propose legislation and vote on it by raising their hands. I mean, that's like Norman Rockwell, painting, tears in my eyes, democracy stuff. How do you do that at scale? And that's our goal. Are we there yet? No. Does all of this need a lot of work? Absolutely. But that's where we're going. Great question. Yes, sir.
That accounts for the copy paste, the sheer spamming. What do you do when factions are constantly undoing and redoing each other's edits?
Faction. Could you elaborate on what you mean by faction? Do you mean this in the Constitution?
Perhaps. Different sides of the issues. I mean, people who want these bills who say different things. Or, I mean, even on Wikipedia, you'll have people undoing and redoing edits over even the most minor things. So what happens when you have users that are getting into a legislative flame war with each other?
I will answer that with the same response I got from Daryl Issa. This is a big concern, right? We took quite a risk in doing this. Because this was like going against other Republicans, this was going against House leadership. We had to explain, I was the bottom guy in the totem pole, Daryl was up top, and we had all these veteran staffers who thought this was all a bunch of whiz-bang, like jokey tech stuff. Daryl said at the end of the day, I'm the guy who has to walk down the floor with a copy of the bill and drop it in the box. So the final decision, right, that's why we elect representatives, the final decision is going to reside with the representative. But we've just made the representative a little bit, their life a little bit easier. That action, that movement, and think of how we started this discussion, right? When we made a statement and folks were sliding back and forth, that's what you just described. And as an elected official, that helps me make a way more informed decision on where my constituents stand and what I actually need to be doing to serve their needs. Great question. Anything else? Anything's open here. We can talk about foreign stuff, we can talk about domestic stuff, we can talk about the... Yes, sir.
How do you see this being accepted by long-term veteran staffers and congressmen that have been in since the dawn of time?
Cool. Since the dawn of time. They're John Dingell, right? He's from Michigan. He's sort of been there since the dawn of time. Slowly, but you can get them, and you can't get them by showing Instagram at the start, but you can get them by saying, "I've just saved you 40 hours of staff time this week." Right? We added up all the staff hours that we saved by doing that process through SOPA, and it was well over 1,000. You know, that's something that any congressman will know, right? I can have those staffers doing other stuff that's way more important than answering the phone or writing a form letter. Absolutely. That's how you get more entrenched folks. But there will always be holdouts, right? And that's part of the really fun job that I have at the Open Gun Foundation is calling them out. Why don't you want your constituents to know what you're doing? Why don't you want your office to save money? Why don't you want to save like your poor 22-year-old staff assistant's life and make it just that much easier? You don't? Almost always we get a yes. And for those that are still holdouts at the end of the day, there is an actuarial solution because those people will be defeated, retire, or die. How's that for a definitive answer? Cool. You had a question?
Yes. So you said that this is sort of like an online legislation, sort of people can go in and put in their word. You think that this thing has global capability like Twitter had in playing a role in the Arab Spring?
It does. It absolutely does. And that's part of what we're working on as well. So we are hired by the United Nations to set up this, the International Telecommunications Union, to run an online global deliberative process. The government of Guernsey, just south, well, it's part of England, they've hired us to do this, help them stand this up so that they can open up financial rules and regulations for stakeholder input and citizen input. This has complete application to anywhere you are running a democracy or you want to have one. So it's PTA, right? It's neighborhood association all the way up to the federal government. And if you're living in a free society or you want one, it doesn't matter if you speak English or live in the United States. I really love this because it's agnostic to who you are, where you live, as long as you want a voice in what's going on in the world around you. Madison's built for you. Cool? Yes, sir.
First I want to say that I read the paper, and I know when I open it, I'm going to be frustrated because the news is slanted and there's a lot of fluff in it. Okay? And the media knows, the liberal media knows how we feel about them, but they don't change their way. Why?
That's a meaning of life type question. How do you call them out? Right? How do you speak back to them?
I don't.
You don't, but you can. And that's how these things change. So the media is giving you the effect, like why I said I don't do PowerPoints, is because you can't talk back and correct the ship, the direction the ship is going in. One of the use cases for this that we're exploring now is news articles. So when a reporter writes a story that's slanted, why can't you come in and call them out on that? And over time, if you have a way that never goes away, that says this reporter slanted here, 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 the same reporter slanted here, 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 is that person going to be a reporter very much or trusted very much longer? I don't think so. It's the same dynamic as somebody like an elected official whose currency is news, is information. If they're giving you bad information, you as a citizen have a right to know if it's good or bad, and if you know, you have a right to call them out. There just are very few mechanisms to do that.
Well, my problem is, we have their internet address, and I could go to trouble, complaining about what I know, that's my problem.
Well,
one of the problems.
Well, hopefully we can make it that much easier for you to complain and be heard. But those frustrations are real, right? One of the cool things about our research in media is, so we did a whole bunch, you guys know dial testing? You ever heard of it? You come in, you say a statement, and people basically do what we did there. We've dial tested this whole platform, and one of the cool things is that other information, news articles say about the Urban Farming and Food Security Act. Folks don't want just one side. They want both. They want the Fox News and the MSNBC side by side, so they can make an informed decision because they walk into the room knowing if I'm just getting Fox News, I'm just getting part of the story. If I'm just getting MSNBC, I'm just getting part of the story. And when you're talking about how we live our lives and the real stuff that governs what we can and cannot do in this country, you need that. Thomas Paine, I'm sure there were people arguing against him in the Tory camp that were heard. We're trying to do the same thing here for online legislating and lawmaking. Yes, sir.
Where do you think interest groups play into this? Are you trying to eliminate them, or what's the goal here with interest groups?
Eliminate interest groups? Oh, God. Well, that's like, what, climbing Mount Everest on your hands and knees? No, we're actually trying to harness their energy. They've got something that politicians or government needs, right? They have a way to reach you. You open that, if you care about, let's say, gun rights, and you're a subscriber to the NRA, you'll probably open up that email. So if we're trying to reach people who are pro and against, we work with those interest groups to enable them to get their message out more effectively and get into the process. Because the dirty little secret is when you go to change.org and write that petition, no one reads it. It literally means nothing. And the interest groups today won't tell you that. They literally make their money and their livelihood on thinking that we get the message through to government. They hear what you have to say. Well, they don't. Why don't they? Because it's divorced from this. It just is a piece of paper or an email that's sent into a spam folder or into a recycle bin. What we've done is we've pegged that energy, channeled by the interest groups, to the issues of the day. And that's the beautiful cycle that we think we've built. Interest groups are always going to be around, and it's just like lobbyists, right? People love to hate lobbyists. Well, that's what lobbyists do. They educate, they disseminate. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But that's something that's not going away in our government. Or at the very least, not a fight this humble, very skinny kid from Massachusetts feels that he can win in his lifetime. That's a great question. I saw another hand. It's Mary Gretchen.
So with the thousands of bills submitted each year, do you see this also as a way for maybe some lesser known pieces of legislation to gain traction, or have you seen that happening?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Based on the comments?
Yes. That's the algorithmic fixing of our democracy. So many bills are excuse me, BS, excuse my French, bull stuff, right? Just like you should. They're messaging bills. There's something that you can go home and say, I did something, even though it never got out of the Congress, or it never got out of the other house, or it never got out of the city council, the mayor didn't sign it, whatever, just so you have a pelt to stick on the wall to get reelected. You can call that stuff out if you can see it. And the reverse of that is, this is that in practice, right? Urban farming, you would think that's like a very tiny, inconsequential issue, but it's transformative for some parts of the District of Columbia, and for some parts of any city. How did we get that to the top of the agenda? We made it discoverable, we made it interactive, we made it really easy for people interested in urban farming to build that coalition, to tell their friends, right? Everything you click on here, you can upvote, downvote, flag, share out socially. So we made it a little bit easier for you to build that army without being an interest group or without being a lobbyist. And the numbers do went up. The good stuff floats to the top, just like the great. It's a great question. That's probably good. That should be a tag, right? For what we're doing. Good stuff in our democracy floats to the top. That's what we're shooting for. And it's possible. It's possible. I know a lot of you guys are going to go out and work in government. Or actually, let me stick to that. Let's take a quick poll. Who's planning on working in government or has worked in government? Okay, good. So many of you. That's what I'm hoping to give you today, is not just the GovStar framework, but also to know that there are better ways to do that, to get the premier miles to the top. Amen. We got about 5 more minutes, so I can take like one more question, comment, concern.
So,
2 more.
can you please spend some time talking about what are the challenges and the drawbacks of this?
Oh God, the challenges. The first is, like, what keeps me up at night? Is that type of question, or like what are the actual barriers we bust?
Well, actually barriers, and if there are possible negative consequences.
The barriers that we bust technically is actually data, and I tried. I think I kept it like not terribly technical. I didn't talk about PHP or GitHub or any of the crap that goes on the dev level to get this on the internet. But those are the first barriers that we're just starting to overcome, which is how do you take a PDF, right? How do you take this and make it look like this? That involves scraping. It involves pattern matching, regex if you're a developer, to get this information into open interactive formats in the beginning. The second barrier has been alluded to throughout, right? How do you get that stodgy congressman who's been there forever? And that's what I spent a lot of my time on, right? How can I sex this up so that they know, like, they want this really badly? That's the second barrier. The negative consequence that I see here, and it's one that we're really thinking through right now, is authentication, right? Think of Tunisia and Egypt. What happens if Alex B., if the government can go find Alex B., where he lives, or she lives, and put them in jail for whatever they said on the internet? Like, that can happen in a lot of places, and that's really the barrier that I don't have a solution to right now, but that's the thing that keeps me up at night. Is somebody getting into trouble, like, personally, and really hurt or negatively affected because of what we're making possible here online? Some good things have happened, not with us, but some really bad things have happened. Think of like Facebook and bullying. Imagine that in a political context. That's the barrier that I don't have an answer to right now, full candor, but that's the thing that keeps me up at night. And we have a question right here. Great question. Did that get you?
Yeah.
Sort of? All right.
So do you have a method for people that don't have a lot of degree or don't speak legalese that want to get a really good idea written into the bill but don't know how to translate it over? Do you have people that actually sit there and say, that's a great idea, let me translate it into bill talk?
Anybody use Wikipedia? Yes, not for your paper. No. There are people out there who are known as Wikipedians. They're the editor layer. They take your good idea or your fact and then make sure it's properly footnoted, it's cited, it's in the right Wikipedia format so that it can be pushed from that talk page to the front page and actually become part of the article. We have those here. They're called staffers. That's what they do every day, right? You call in and you say, Senator Kraft, I think you should make apple pie the official pie of America. Well, that's a great idea because I love apple pie. I'm going to do that and run with it. Well, I've got to translate that into, resolved, ... That's what staffers do every day, and that's why they really like what we've done, because we're giving them that raw information and that head start, right? They know what to work on, and they know where to do that.
Okay, we got a class here.
Oh, we're in class here.
We do. So let's give Seamus some training.
Thank you guys. Thank you.